There I go, there I go, there I go again. Dooby 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 doo. Well, here we are. Homeboy cow. Have any of you been intimate with cows? I don't mean in a biblical kind of way, but milk them, take care of them, feed them, muck their stalls. Cows, in a lot of ways, what's very interesting, at least in my opinion, cows are like dogs and horses are like cats. Because cows are just, hey, how you doing, man? I love you, guy. Oh, you're gonna give me something to eat? Oh, I love you. Cats or horses are like, well, maybe I'll let you ride on my back, and if I do, we have to really look good together. Anyway, but cows are just the sweetest things ever, and that we eat them, not a good idea. Because we mass produce them in such a way that, more than your car, cows are worse for global warming, And guys, you have to really realize that global warming, yes, things are getting warm some places and really cold in others. I mean, right now, because of the solar minimum, the United States is going to be like freaking cold. And Europe, England, France, Germany, Italy, and all of Eastern Europe, it's going to be like the North Pole, Well, the guys in Moscow are kind of used to it, but not so much everybody else, especially those Brits. So it's going to be interesting. And, Al Gore is such a, I could use a string of profanity for that boy. He's such a putz, I invented the internet. But really what I want to talk to you guys about is, so I can, dig deep into the world of technology and conspiracy and theories and, things that are go bump in the night. And I've been around a lot of it, so I can tell you stories about it. But they're more like the kind of stories your Uncle Babe would tell you to keep you in bed while he and your father would drink and play cards, and so you wouldn't bother them. And but what really matters is, what are you guys doing in your neighborhoods? Homeboy, homegirl, what are you doing in your neighborhoods? What are you doing to facilitate? Because the only thing that's going to, yes, I'm telling you about, I've been doing this series, 40 days, 40 nights, and telling you about the window. And yes, you don't have to be a rocket scientist like me to see what's going on. I mean, it's right in front of our freaking faces, Someone stuck Donnie Chump in the position of, POTUS chief, wrecking ball and sledgehammer, taking apart the deep state and the cesspool by, putting in another deep state and another cesspool. But he is so nihilistic. So but pretty much to be a politician, you have to. And who is the Jewish comedian woman who died mysteriously after she said that Obama was a woman and Michelle was a guy? I have no idea. And I keep telling you guys, don't believe anything I say. Check it out. But, catch me live. Here I am. And because you finally catch me live, I'll stay on for a while. But I want to chat about what you're doing in your neighborhood. How are you making your neighbors like me? I'm basically your homeless guy, and the universe takes care of me because I'm always, what makes me happy is when other people are happy. You know, what I do in every day and every way is take the joy of love's co-creation and share it. So I'm always enjoying my everyday. I have no money, can't buy stuff, but things come my way, so I can't complain. But so there are these two neighborhoods that I've spent the last 20 years in. One is Roanoke, Virginia, and one is this interesting 200 square mile bubble of Appalachian poverty between Johnson City, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia, and Boone, North Carolina. Those three cities, Johnson City is where ETSU is, which is their big flagship whoop-de-doo college. And it is quite a nice one, I mean, it is the Virginia Tech of Tennessee, and in my mind, it's a better school. Has better professors, better projects, better everything. And they don't have that blue, disgusting vomit stone that covers every square inch of Tech and Blacksburg. And when that guy whacked all those people in Tech, a friend of mine, who I also, here's a guy, he's quite extraordinary, well-published social scientist. His specialty is PTSD and paranormal, but the paranormal is on the down low. I mean, he really doesn't publish books on that. He gets, like me, he would get contracts by interesting people who wanted to know, and we're looking for people like us who would look at things objectively, not subjectively. Every scholastic is a subjective moron, kind of just telling you what the textbook says. The objective scholar is trying to look for what's going on, and well, here's this dot and here's this dot, and I can put them together, and here's a couple more. But we have to take it on the long, that's what I do. I look at long-term trends, and I give an insight into what's going on. And that's why, human beings are just a bag of water that continues that insight. We're all, part of the collective unconscious. We're part of the big link. We're all in that pond together. And I'm just dropping little pebbles into the pond and let the waves go over everyone. And who picks it up, And that's how I can do a cold reading of people, is that I just kind of, like today, I had my eyes operated on, right? And I go into this hospital, eye hospital, and it's, the procedure that I go through and the medicine I get would cost, if I had good insurance, would cost $4,800 procedure. But because I have zero, zilch, zippo, nothing, nada, and I go in there and I'm not impatient and I'm nice to everyone in the waiting room and read their palms and make their day happy and make the waiting room run smoothly so the people who work there don't have to deal with old folk who are all scared and I read everyone who works there. I read their palms. I, have a cup of tea with them and read their tea leaves, do all that, crime stuff. And I've been, they've been taking care of my eyeballs now for almost a year and a half. And the guy who developed the procedure, it's his hospital, and his, he takes care of me. And he just kind of writes me off because, he doesn't need my $4,800. So he has, he is basically ponied up with this big pharma company. And even though he owns, I guess, the proprietorial rights of this, they are the only people who can produce the stuff. So anyway, long story short, I fit into some little category that he can stick me in as a research bunny, and so I don't have to pay anything. And he does, the best guy to have a procedure, where someone is sticking a gigantic needle into your eyeball is the guy who invented the procedure and the stuff being squirt in the back of my eyeball. Anyway, it works. I used to, I could hardly see anything because it was like a spider web of gauze and swimmers and floaters and black dots, and all that's kind of gone. Now my eyes are kind of torquing up. I can see. And my one eye is doing better than the other, but the other, one eye is doing great, and the other eye is doing well. And he says, don't worry about it, just we keep doing this, and as long as it keeps getting better each time, hey, not a problem. If one eye does better than the other, you got two of them. And you can still see it out of both of them, so, it's all good. Hello, everyone. So, again, back to my question to all of everyone here, all 6 of you. What are you doing in your communities to make it better? What are you doing in your communities to, connect love's co-creation with your community, Our community, why these 2 places I've spent the last 18 years, and I really didn't spend all 18 years there. I would say both Roanoke and the place the place in Tennessee is like, I'm right on the line of 2 counties and on the line of 3 states. And there's water swirling around me. There's a waterfall, 2 rivers, and a gigantic lake. So, and it has 6 gigantic plates going through it. And I live in the 200 square mile of, bubble of Appalachian poverty. The mountain range that I live in aren't lumpy mountains, they're sawtooth. So it energetically is off the chart. So that's why I picked it. Great water, cleanest water. I am not, I'm 40 miles to the closest, those 3 cities. There is no, they're just people in hollers. There's no major highway. There's just a county road. There's no industry, no air pollution, no nothing. There is a big power line. It doesn't go over me. It goes the other side of my holler. I'm a good 2 miles from it, so it's not really bothering me. But I can feel it. But there is a sawtooth mountain or 2 between that holler that line goes through and where I am, so it kind of bounces the EMF, not right at me like a microwave oven. And because everyone's so poor, there's no cable, there's no internet, there's no cell tower, there's no cell. I had to drive 24 miles before my phone works. So those are inconvenience, but in a way, they're really good. So even though that's like way out in the middle of nowhere, it's been screwed by the corporate state. So both places, Roanoke and this bubble of Appalachian poverty, is what's the right word? The victim of the corporate greed, right? Remember that monster, the Lakota story I told you about Plum and Corn, and the monster of unbridled consumption. Yeah, well, that's kind of what's going on now. Roanoke is the microcosm of the United States. It has a slice of everything possible. So 18 years I've been hitting every group, and I can tiptoe into any group. I'm a anthropologist. I put on the grass skirt of whatever group it is, and I'm there taking notes, listening, studying, understanding every individual. And then what I usually do, once I have sussed out how people's psychology is, I will, say something or do something that will, make them. And I told you that story where I was in the supermarket and the special person who bagged my, by putting the eggs at the bottom of the bag and putting the cans on top of it. And then I said, no, son, here, let me show you how to do it. I bagged it, for him. He goes, I worked here 2 years and no one showed me how to bag. I think, and he was so thrilled, and he's such a sweet guy. Just, oh, I love you for showing me how to bag. And I've been here 2 years and no one's said anything about it. And as we're going out, there's a bully who's running the robot cash registers. And, he starts saying really mean, hurtful things to this poor guy. And it's mostly kind of going over this guy's head. And, every little word the bully said, one of them kind of hits him like, ugh. So, without me saying anything, I just kind of steer I'm on one of those motorized golf cart lazy boy with a basket. I love shopping that way. And I just kind of turn and go straight on at him. Now, this thing doesn't, go faster than, 20 feet a second. So it's probably even a tenth of that. So I'm not going to kill him. But before he realizes, well, this guy's going to run me over with this thing, he can't go anywhere. And I pin him against the robot cash register. And I said, listen, buddy, you're a bully. And then I just look at him and do a cold reading and see that when he was a youngster, he, caught squirrels and birds and set them on fire, hit, crushed them with hammers. I mean, the most cruel things. And he got off, and he didn't realize that a demon, per se, or a reptile, or whatever, nom de plume you want to put on it, is like using him as a vengeance battery. He's the ever-ready nasty battery. Anyway, and now he's not doing that. He might still be doing that, but he's mostly getting his juice from being a bully to people like, the special guy who didn't know how to bag bags. Anyway, I go right into him, and I'm speaking loud enough. I'm not whispering. I'm telling exactly what he did, what kind of person he is, and that if he does this ever again to this sweet person, I'm coming back. And boy, and they have one of those microphones at his station that, manager to aisle 4, and I grab it and I said, you want me to tell everyone what you masturbate over, and I didn't hit the button. And he's got his name on his little lapel, so so he's like, ah! And I kind of back up and he runs away. Right, I look back at the cashier where this special guy had been bagging, and she looks at me and smiles, and she didn't go like this, but then the manager comes over and says, I want to thank you. I go, what? He goes, for doing what you just did. I've been wanting to do that since this guy's come here a year ago, but I can't because I'm black and I'm the only black manager. And if I did anything like what you just did to that guy, I'd lose my job. So thank you. You want anything? You need anything? Can I, can we go through the aisles and fill your basket up? And I said, no, next time. I said, I have no money, so I've got enough food with my pittance that I have. When I have no money, I'll come back. You can fill my card up then. He goes, not a problem. Anyway, so that was every day and every way I do things like that. So I kind of, terrified that one person, but the other 8 people who watched it, their hearts were lifted, and maybe they will do something as good themselves by my example. Now I'm I'm Sensei Al Bob, so I do things in I got a panache. And one of my clients, and I've heard this from many people, that, Al, you are an acquired taste. But I love you, man. You're the only, I don't know anybody like you. What you do is amazing. I love you. But I said, well, those people who can't stand me, they come back later on and thank me for what, like that guy, he will think about what I had done and maybe he'll change, So what are you guys doing out there to make your community better in every way and every day? Because this cataclysm that's heading towards us, has anyone So, you can always get a hold of me through the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? You can always leave a nice little, thing on, the comment thing underneath my videos, right? And you young lad who came on first, who said you finally caught up with me. So, and I see that you leave me little things. So, between this live chat and the chat that everyone's having and the comments that you leave on that sign and then my Gmail, these are vehicles that on this platform we can communicate. You have any question, you want to do anything in your neighborhood, you have an environmental problem, you have a political problem, economic problem, social problem. Hey, that's my bailiwick. I'm Mr. Fix-It. It's even there on my business card, Mr. Fix-It. So what I want to hear from you guys is, what are you doing? Because if we don't start doing things in the, just a little way, you don't have to march on anything, or just what do you do every day in every way to make a difference? Okay, what do we got here? Mr. BS, that's what I'm going to call him, because I can't pronounce either. I just have my eyes operated on, and so it's kind of like looking through gauze. RS. Rhoda. Anyway, RS, okay? So, Joan Rivers, thank you very much. See, you're listening. I think. You were right. That's it. Hello, everyone. Twitchy, hey, how you doing, buddy, there? And Mr. Ride, good to hear from you. What did you have to say? There you go, Jackie Hobo Kids downtown, and trying to get them to be their better selves. Yes, by planting a seed of love in their garden. So, what do those kids do? Where do they live? Where do they hang out? What do they eat? Because if there are abandoned buildings in your neighborhood, if the county or state owns them, you can take them over with the Price-Anderson Act, right? All you have to do is, if it's boarded up, you kind of go in and get a way to get in on the back side of the building so no one can see you going in. You put a little mail slot. You put the number so the mailman can really see it, and you start mailing yourself mail. And once it arrives, you start mailing yourself registered mail. You go into whatever post office that building is in and get yourself a P.O. box, and you first start mailing stuff to that thing. Then you go to the post office guy and say, hey, see, I have some mail here. I want to get a post office box. See, and this is the address. So they do. You send yourself registered letters. They send you the little yellow slip. You go, anyway, that gives a paper trail of that you can stay in that building until, the court guys start dealing with it. And then you go find yourself a lawyer in your neighborhood who, he's, making his money doing contracts and blah, 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 and getting drug dealers out of jail and things like that. But they all want to do the right thing. If they're any good, if they're making some money, they will take their practice, and you could be their one, or they have a few projects they like that they take care of. They help, right? So then you set up a 501c3 with that lawyer, and that's the umbrella. And then you start writing grants for education programs, for construction. This is how it's done. I've done it 100 times. And by doing that, when you have a strategy, you can really accomplish. Now, you can lead by example, your personal example. I told you a little story where I drove up on the bully. But if you've got kids who are out on, out there, you can, get them to use the system instead of mean, the system's there, and you either use the system or get abused by it, right? So, shooting up. Well, if they're addicted, you just have to make sure they're doing it just like sex, like teenagers are going to have sex, just make sure they're doing safe, get them, if there are any programs where they can get needles, if there's any place, the biggest problem, I mean, we have a bigger opiate problem in the United States than where the rest of the world put together. More people are dying, like 18 to 30,000 people die from opiate overdoses in 2016, right? And what do we do but put them in jail? We have no real programs. We put them on methadone, whereas the Narcan, which is the drug that we should be putting addicts on because it keeps them from ODing, and it also gets them off the opiate, whereas, methadone is just a substitute, meaning you're taking meth or heroin or fentanyl away and putting methadone, so it goes into that little receptor. And once methadone is, you can kick all those other opiates and synthetic opiates. But methadone, once it gets in that receptor, it's there. You're addicted to it, period. Period. It was invented by the Nazis because they didn't have enough sick fracking morons to do all the nasty stuff that their reptile masters want them to do. So they invented this drug that didn't get them high, but they didn't get their shot. They'd go up a wall, and they couldn't get over it. So the thing is to always do your homework. Be there in service, make people happy, which will make you happy. Be joyful at what you do, right? Okay, so what are we talking about? These young, chunky hobo kids downtown. Yep, cold out there. Yep, they're all shooting up now. They have families who really ought to be down. PC part of their soul. Diminished. I mean, drugs are, a hole. Why do people do drugs? Because there's a hole in their soul, and they're trying to put something in it. They have no community, they have no society, they have no nothing, and they really, really are down on themselves. Yeah, they have, are there any medical folks for them? Probably not. Yes, you can change it. Well, keep at it, And again, you're starting out good because you're making a connection with them, a personal relationship. And then you can work with them. I mean, when we took over abandoned buildings in New York City, we took over 50 buildings. We housed 500 families. Well, that was our little collective. But we help other collectives do the same thing. The anarchist kids, the drug kids. I mean, it's better the drug kids were in a building and stayed warm and had a place of their own. And we help them. We help them. Oh, I want to steal the electricity. No. We're going to put in real electricity. Between the 20 of you, you can pay $22 for 1 month of electricity, and that way you have an electric bill, and when the marshal comes to throw you out, they can't because you have a utility bill. I mean, these are strategies. These are organized mechanisms, and lots of people have used them. Meaning, I got all the things I know from the elders. All my relations. 9 generations in front of me. All the old anarchists that I used to go play chess and go with in Washington Square Park in the early 60s, like guys like Adam Purple. He was the granddaddy of, and he didn't squat, he homesteaded, right? Squatting is when you go into a burned out building and you grab a urinated bedding and just sleep there. Homesteading is where you fix the place up so it's a home, right? So let's see what else we got here. These kids are, schizophrenic. I really have a long crop with them. Yes, rapport is what it's about. Going on 5 years. Excellent, my man. They all say hi, but as soon as it got cold, depression came out. Yep. True evil. Yep. Yep. You know, I've lived in neighborhoods in Williamsburg and Brownsville, Red Hook, in the late 60s and 70s, Needle Park, Lower East Side, and Alphabet City, like on Avenue D. That these were all neighborhoods. If the people didn't know you, they'd actually kill you, you know? You know, if you weren't there to score, you know, and they didn't know you, you didn't get out alive, you know? And that's when, you know, in the 80s, when, you know, thanks to the Vietnam War and the Iran-Contra War, you know, go watch the movie French Connection. Drugs are all about controlling the population, right? Has been. I mean, that's why the English had the Opium Wars, you know. The English weren't fighting up the Chinese to keep opium from going to Europe. No. You know, the English got the opium from India, and they were trying to take over China by getting everyone addicted on opium, right? And all drugs have been that mechanism. I mean, and not just opiates, but sugar and white flour and bread and all these things. These are drugs used by imperial forces to, you know, addict indigenous people, you know, same as it ever was. Alcohol, same thing, right? Tobacco and every other wacko drug you can think of. Anything you can get addicted on, the corporate state uses to oppress the folk. No cash. But, you, like I said, go find a building that you guys can fix up that can be their own home, because once they put some energy into fixing something, that was our psychology. We didn't let people squat. And, you know, the people who put this together, David, me, Rolando, you know, Marissa, Christina, and a number of others, we would teach them how to fix up their buildings, you know, the plumbing, the gas, the electric, the construction. You know, we did it up to code as best as we could with stuff and New York was great, man. We would just drive around in my big truck and construction sites, go through the dumpsters. And I knew the carting guys, and they would tell me where big construction sites were, because we would take out, you know, half a dumpster's worth of stuff, and people would throw more stuff into it, and we take it. And so they'd never have to cart it off, so they could charge, you know, for taking a 30-yard dumpster, and we were taking the stuff away to build in these buildings. So they were making $600 for just dropping one 30-yard, you know, dumpster, and they'd be making $600 a day, and we'd be taking the stuff away. So, you know, Tony Two Toes was sweeter than sweet, and you know, that was, you know, all of Mike Pinelli's guys. You know, I was Mike's grandson, not by blood but by love, and I fixed his everything. You know, that's how I got into doing nightclubs and titty bars and making interesting gizmos. And all these guys were always trying to get me to do a scam, but I would never do it, because I know that on the back side of things, it's not worth it. Because, yeah, these guys got along, you know, were made men, and with that movie, Goodfellas, that was it. You know, it was just like that. But they all ended up dead or in jail, you know, or addicted to really bad shit. So I didn't do any of that. But I would give those guys the opportunity to be their better angel. You know, so if I could make Tony Two Toes some money by him letting me take, you know, tons and tons and tons of, you know, construction materials out of his dumpsters, he was all down for it. So, and that's, you know, you have to organize and strategize with a win-win motif, not you're going to win over. That's why politics doesn't work, because it's never a win-win. It's always, I'm going to beat you, you're going to lose, I'm going to win, frack you. No, that doesn't. That's not love's co-creation. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. There's so many empty houses. Okay, there you go. Empty. So where are you? Can I'll bring my tools and I will help you do it. If you're in the United States, so I don't have a passport. I used to be able to go to Canada and Mexico. I used to be able to go anywhere without a passport. Not so much anymore. But I'd love to come and help you guys out, and get other people to come do it, because, man, it's so much fun when you build a community, So. And there's a lot of that going on. I did a lot of that in both these places, but everyone wanted me to do it, and I wanted them to, I get them started, and it's like, no, sorry. Oh, and then when people are doing things, it was my idea, I did it, If you want to do anything within the social construct, you have to have the egoless. So our little bags of water, we got egos, that's kind of how it works. You can't really motivate yourself without an ego, but you don't have to have an egoed ego, meaning you can have an egoless ego, meaning when I do stuff, I don't need to be praised or said, hey, I did that, because people know what I do. They see me. I mean, it's like, what's his name, when I did the Crone video and the Jimi Hendrix video and the, David Bowie and the shamanic ceremonies. It was me, just like this, in front of the thing. And what's his name got all bent out of shape because it's my channel and it's, he wanted the credit. And I didn't say, hey, no. But it got tiring that I like I said, I know you guys are watching me. It's not a problem. And once I said, I'm tired of having to deal with the psychodrama with what's his name, I, basically, by the 26th time he threw me out, I found a place to stay. Didn't come back. And then he would beg, oh, please come back, let's do something. And I would come back, we'd do another video, and he would I do these live chats because it's the only way I can do it. And I love to hear what you guys have to say, right? He would do videos and edit them and do all this stuff, like what he did with the Elvis video. I have it up there. I did a live chat of the Elvis video, and what's his name edited it, right? I spent hours, and, I'm killing, I said, well, don't, you don't have to spend 18 straight hours doing this, do an hour a day over 18 days, and, who cares, Anyway, the bottom line is it's about being in service. It's about, making other people happy. That's what makes me happy. What brings me joy is, creating things with love's co-creation with other folks. And that's why we're here. And that's why I keep doing stuff with what's his name, because what I really would love to do, and I keep trying to do it, maybe we'll get to do it. He wants to go to LA, and I would love to drive across and do videos as we drove and go into, I know loads of people across the country. I mean, within every 200 miles, there's somebody we could stay at, right? Some city I've done something in an art piece or built a garden or taken over an abandoned building, So you there with these kids, go start checking out abandoned buildings, not squat them, homestead them. Do some homework. See what the laws are. If you're in the United States, there's this thing called the Homestead Act of 1872, which I don't think they've gotten rid of it. If it's private property, you can't go in there. Then you're trespassing. But if it's owned by the city or the county or the state or the federal government, you can go in there. And that's why rainbow gatherings are done on national forests, because you're just camping with 20,000 of your kind of friends on a certain date, So that's what we need to do. More of these kind of fun little events. And they have to be your kids who are drug addicts and going off the deep end of self-destruction. The only way you can reel them back in is with culture. You have them tell their story on a video, on a YouTube. You start a YouTube page. You start doing this. I had a friend of mine who, this is back in the day when we started collaborative artist projects. And he had gone to school. I think he kind of grew up in the Midwest, and then he went to art school in Cal Arts, I think. And then he said, I want to make some money. So someone offered him a job to go work in advertising in Texas, like in the 80s. And they had a couple of shops there, but he really, turned that on its ear and turned the house that he was working into one of the most prolific and creative and a cash cow advertising agency in the United States. And he got, hey, that guy he's the bomb, right? So after about X amount of years of making some money, he said, you know what? I'm going to go be a fine artist in New York. So end of the mid 80s, he came in and we bumped into each other because I was doing shows all over the place, everywhere. And, he was from the Midwest and Texas. He was not really a prime time kind of guy. So that's what Collab was really there for, to take people who had talent and just couldn't, were culture shock of New York. So anyway, so we became buds. And, he did that, and he's a very whatever he does really well. And he went off and did that, and then after he I saw I conquered. He went back to Texas because he liked it better than New York. He had his New York experience, I think 3 or 4 years, and he went back, and he went back to the guys at the house were like, oh, we were just waiting for you to come back. You got your job. And now that you're a fine artist, you can throw in a whole new thing. Anyway, so he's doing that. And 86 crash comes. So there were a lot of homeless people that came out of the 86 crash. And also, there were a lot of homeless people when Ronald Reagan closed all the federal mental institution, and he dumped 4 million people on the street in less than 4 months. He just closed them all down in 4 months because his little trickle-down thing wasn't working, and the deficit from his tax breaks were going through the ceiling, just like Donnie's are. And the thing that he could cut easy was, the $16 billion that they were spending on federally sponsored mental institutions. So they went off, and where do those people end up? But in jail. And when that happened, jails started to become for profit. Instead of being run by the state or the county, companies were buying them out and taking them over because they could take those people and get $50,000 a year to keep them in jail from the state, and then take those people and rent them out to Purdue chicken, and I mean, most of the chicken you eat in America is cut up by guys who are in jail, and they're making 13 cents an hour, whereas the jail is making about $12 an hour, right? And if that person, let's say, is in there for something where 20, 30 years, when he gets out, all those, years of him cutting up chickens, and his hands are like all crumpled up with arthritis, and he's sliced off a few fingers. Well, he gets no disability, he gets no Social Security, and he has no savings. And when he leaves that privatized jail, I mean, all the meals he gets, all the, you know, personal stuff, candy, batteries for the radio, whatever, he has to pay for. So he ends up leaving jail after 20 years, owing the jail $30,000, $40,000, and he has to go continue to stay in slavery. And that's the America we got today. And it basically started with Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson is almost the mirror image of Donald Trump. And what happened was Woodrow, did all this. I mean, Woodrow Wilson was the guy who brought us Jim Crow, meaning institutionalized it via the federal government, right? He packed the Supreme Court with crackers, and that was it. The 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment meant zip. And so, just what Donnie did, man. Donnie's probably going to get 2 more Supreme Court judges, and boy, that'll be at the end, because those guys, instead of you being able to vote for your congressman, the Supreme Court makes law without legislating. And they try to make you believe only the liberals do that, but not so much. I mean, this little thing of where corporations can donate unlimited amount of money to politicians and not even have to say how much or who did it. That's like the kiss of death for democracy right there. That's what ended it in Rome. I've been taking photos forever, and I real photos 2 days ago. Met a real photog 2 days ago, and he doesn't shoot them. You see, you need to, that's what this beautiful internet is about. Go to my blogspot, xratted.blogspot.com, and its its address is xrated.blogspot.com, but its name is Griot Publishing. I mean, I wanted it to be a publishing website, right? Now, I don't have a clue on how to do that, but it's there. It can, it's set up to do that. So you want to stick your photos on that? Go for it, Anybody who wants to, I need help. I don't know how to do anything. I'd love to do, I'd love to start, I want to start a number of, since the things I did in New York, and those things still exist. Collaborative Artist Project still getting money, giving it to artists. The 3 different art galleries we started are still there. And we helped entities like the Knitting Factory, the Kitchen, Franklin Furnace, PS1, Brooklyn Academy of Music. These were all things, if we weren't there giving them the seed to do their thing, it would have never happened. I want to start a new thing called Humanities Artist Trust International. Humanity meaning all of us, all our relations, right? Artist trust is because there is no, you can't, priests, religions, can't trust them. They're, having sex with little boys or animals or chipmunks. Politicians, they're owned, and they're even more perverted than the priests. Bankers, judge, you name it, you can't trust anything, right, in our system. And Donald Trump, you have to give him, why I like Donald Trump, I don't like him. But what he's doing is making it so detestable that we can't ignore, because he's not doing anything that every other politician isn't doing, But Donnie Chump is like the X-Lax of the body politique. And he is emptying out the colon of corruption at our feet. And that smell is getting worse and worse and worse. And it's, oh man, before 2020, whoa, you're going to think these were the good old days. It's going to be. And if you go look at what happened in the United States before the Civil War, this is, again, it's like a mirrored image. Go look from the War of 1812 on to the Civil War. Go look at who were president, who was in Congress, what was going on. Go read the newspapers from that time, because they were shooting each other in the Congress, in the Capitol building. They were, having knife fights. It was like straight out of When You're a Jet all the way, from that first cigarette to the last day. That has been, go read Gore Vidal's first novel, which his grandfather was a senator, and he was his grandfather's page. And for a number of years, he just sat there and watched all the corruption and all the perversion and everything going down. He just kind of took notes. And, he wrote his first novel. He didn't expect it to get published, but his roommate was Simon & Schuster. And, he took it to Daddy Simon & Schuster. And he thought this was so great. He just took it and started the ball rolling on getting it published. And when it was just about to come out, he realized, oops, I better get Gord to sign the contract. So he offered him a lot of money, thinking that would, and Gord's a smart guy. He goes, no, I want to, instead of, $70,000, he says, I want $1 million. And the guy went, what? And he goes, not only do I want $1 million, but I want like 40% of the net. The guy, what? Most people on contract don't get more than 6%. Well, this book is going to be an amazing book, right? You wouldn't have started publishing it without my okay, unless you thought this thing was a bullet, And the guy thinks about it, and then Gort says, I'll sign a contract where I will write, I will guarantee you get the next 20 novels. And the guy said, okay, we'll see, and we'll put it on a provisional basis, okay? And Gord says, okay, I just want that first check. And the guy realizes that he will easily make up that off the first shot. So he does. Anyway, Gord Vidal, he has novels about everything, right? And he's as prolific as I am with these YouTubes. But he would just keep knocking them out. And his first 20 novels, he did within the first 2 years. I mean, he just kept friggin' knocking them out. And they were brilliant. They all sold millions, right? So Mr. Simon & Schuster was happy, happy, happy. So what we need to do is use, what is effluence? It's either poison or fertilizer. So we need to use the effluence of this political structure and use it to fertilize all our relations, within the construct of collectively, not in a socialist or communist way, but love's collective of cooperation and unconditional forgiveness. Because, and we do it within the construct of a aesthetic kind of motif. So we have this nonprofit. I'm going to set up a 501c3, the Humanities Artist Trust International. International means the whole friggin' planet, not just New York City or the United States, a whole friggin' planet, right? Then under that, we have a number of other things. So the Institute for Aesthetically Adapt and Appropriate Technology, because to fix anything, you have to look at it aesthetically, because how stuff runs, how the culture of the meat puppet is. It's an aesthetic thing. It's like taste, right? Anyway, and I have this all, I've written it all down. I used to write, I used to get paid really well writing grants. So I have it in bullet points, right? And I've been trying to get lots of different people in, Roanoke, Virginia to do this because, again, it's a microcosm of America. If I could get these guys to do it, and everybody who reads it, and I, have really good access. I have access to the politicians. I have access to the bankers. I have access to all the social organizations. And, I'm their grandpa Smurf. What do we do? Blah, blah, blah. And I give them, well, this is how you need to organize. This is the strategy. And then they go off and do something stupid. They keep doing the same stupid thing over and over, expecting a different outcome each time. And that's what's his name. That's why he's the canary in the coal mine. But you folks there, my contra, you are not the same morons. You wouldn't be watching me if you were. So, Humanities Artists Trust International, umbrellaing the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology, and I've worked for a lot of institutes, Brookings, Ford Foundation, Carnegie Mellon, and they get trillions of dollars to study things, right? We can do the same thing, right? And all those junkies, we can teach them how to do this, how to do field work. Because to understand social dynamics, you got to put on the grass skirt. They're all wearing the grass skirt. So out of that, within the political structure, we have to use the Iroquois Nation's Great Law, which our founding fathers used to do the structure of the Constitution is based on the Iroquois Great Law. Look it up. Why do you think those morons were wearing looking like Indians and wearing their little Masonic aprons? Because these guys grew up out in the woods. They all knew the Indians, especially Washington. Washington, got his military chops by fighting the Indian Wars, So he knew all the Indians, He had friends who were Indians and enemies who were Indians. And, the other guys, not as amazing as Washington, but they all were involved. They all landed white gentry. So they knew how the Iroquois, they were business people. They were better business people than the white folk. Same with the Cherokee. That's why they were decimated, because they were too much of a competition. But we can use history. We can use, tried and true methods. And when you do this, the corporate state of the powers that shouldn't be kind of go, who do you think gave me all this money? Who do you think hired me for 28 years to do all these studies? Those guys, right? And they constantly were trying to get me, look at your good friend, Dr. Quigley. He's on the inside. Yeah, he was wearing handcuffs, And I'd say, well, I really, for me to do the kind of work you want me to do, I need to be free on the outside. I need to wear that grass skirt. Now, okay. But when you get older, you might want, well, I'm thinking about it, boys. Come on, take me out to lunch. Give me that offer that that Charles Yost gave me, So I'm ready because I know I can do all of this, make the world better, and still represent you guys. I've been doing it most of my life. I can always. So you need to document this, buddy. Mr. Ride, you need to that's why I photograph and video everything, because I document it. And that's why I want you guys to take, all of this stuff off my YouTube channel, right? Put it on CD-ROM, so even if a blast, a CME wipes every chip out on the planet, some anthropologist or archaeologist will find that burnt compact disc. And, look at what this guy was saying a million years ago. Anyway, so I give you total permission. And if you make money at doing it, you got to give me some. And you got to break it into thirds. You can keep a third for doing it. I'm all for that. I get a third because it's coming out of my mouth. And here's my face. And the other third goes to building the Humanities Artists Trust International, right? And so within every city, we need to build what are known as grandmothers' councils. Who is the most responsible person in any room? Grandma, right? And to be grandma, you don't have to be a female. You just have to have the soul of grandma. You know, you were grandma in another life, and you had the plumbing, but it's still carried over now that you got different plumbing, right? I'm a grandma, meaning most of my most successful social strategies were done with grandmas, you know? And I was the catalyst. I was the leaf spring, meaning I saw these grandmas wanting to do something, trying real hard, and I said, hey, let me help you. Let me help you help everybody else, okay? I'm here to help you. And once they realize that, you know, and it only takes 3 or 4 times. I mean, there, you know, I usually walk into, like, there was a group, there was a guy, and I have to get him on the YouTube. He's a great friend of mine. He's a barber. He had a barbershop. And his barbershop was the epitome of what people, you know, everyone would go in there and talk about stuff, right? And there was a shooting of a kid. And it was, you know, the cops who shot him were not racist pigs. And most of the shootings of black people, black young men, are not because those cops are racist pigs. What it is that the system they work for are racist pigs, right? So they're trained to respond in a certain way, like Pavlov's dogs. So this kid came out of a Walgreens with a toy gun. I mean, you could tell it was a toy gun. The shape, it had, you know, by law, it has to have that little orange thing on the barrel. And so he comes out, and somebody called up saying, there's a black man with a gun in front of Walgreens. And these guys were coming by, and they'd only been on the job for maybe a month. They had just graduated from the police academy, and usually you have a newbie and a sergeant. They had 2 newbies in a car, right? And they rolled up on this kid, and they, you know, almost ran him over. They're about 20 feet from him. Their headlights of the car is like blinding him. He's like going like this. And they jump out, and they're behind the doors of their car, meaning they're protected. They got like 8 inches of steel between this kid and them, and they unload their guns. You know, this kid died of lead poisoning, not just one shot, but they unloaded their 9mm, whole clip. Bang, 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 bang. Now, Walgreens has, security cameras on the outside. So he got caught. And somebody who was in the news kind of got it and, oh, this will be my career. And not only put it on the neighborhood channel, but sent it off to the home office in wherever it was. I think it was a CBS affiliate. And it was all over the place, right? And then that was it. All the, screaming folk who hate, and I hate when this happens, but I try to change it for the better, not use it as a springboard to make more, look at me, I'm on the springboard, oh, look at me, it's all about me, 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 me. Anyway, so our little town was about to catch fire. So what does this guy do? So he's the barber. He has this barbershop. Everyone's talking, oh, we have to do this. And he goes, well, why don't we have a meeting at the here at the barbershop? Just come, next, 4 days from now, next Friday. Tell everyone to come to the barbershop. And everyone used to hang out at the barbershop anyway. It was right in the middle of the hood. And he calls up the police chief and says, hey, listen, you guys, I took a look at that video. I could tell that was just a real terrible accident. And it's about your training, not you're a racist pig. So I'm going to have this meeting, and I want you, and there are 4 other police folk in that department at that time. They're all retired now. were the right people. You know, there was 2 captains, a lieutenant, and 2 sergeants, and the chief, and they all came. And there were women and people of color and white old guys, right? But they were all had a lot of time in, had a lot of experience. Everybody but the chief had been there the whole career. And see, the problem with most police forces is that people join to be a policeman, not as a career, but as a thing to put on their resume and they're going to go to law school because they can get if you're a policeman, you can get a deal to go to law school. Anyway, so and then they can become a district attorney or become a politician. And most cops, that's it. That's what they do. Like in Roanoke, I would say a good third of the young policemen are there just for 4 or 5 years to put it on their resume. And that's what these 2 guys were. So anyway, bottom line is, so that the night comes, and there's this amazing, I wish I had, I wish I was there, but I wasn't. I was out of town. And because I would have loved to videotape it. No one seemed to have. Because I can videotape anything. Everyone knows that I'm always sticking my camera up and they all watch them and see, wow, I really look great. Al makes me look great, makes me look smart, makes me look, all these great things, and captures what I wanted to say. Wow, this, Al is great, Anyway, so that meeting happens, and out of that, so the town doesn't burn to the ground. That guy gets a lot of cred for, the Chamber of Commerce and all the white folk who own everything, the banks. And they go, well, here's a good black man, he's going to do our bidding for us. So we can, he'll be the field nigger, Well, no, that's not this guy. He's a great guy. So anyway, he starts up a entity, a social thing, and he goes, what's most, and, the usual suspects show up because they want, to get hold off. They've all ran for something or other, alderman or city council or mayor or whatever, state legislature. And no, because it's always about them. And people let them do it because nobody else wants to do that. So they let them do it anyway. So so this guy, the barber, has tremendous street cred in the city, and the city, the TV guys, he just has to call up any TV station and say, hey, I want to say something on TV, and they're there. The newspaper guys, he's got carte blanche to put anything in the newspaper. So anyway, so he puts out the word that he wants to start a community organizing group. Well, like I said, the usual suspects show up. So somebody tells me about that, and so I show up. And not only do I show up, but I show up an hour and a half early before the usual shows. And well, it's still a barbershop, right? So it's a an early spring day. It's nice out. Not too. It's been cold, terrible. I've been down in Florida, and I just get back, and somebody tells me about all of this, and I said, okay. Now I'm really sick. I have these metal clamps on my legs, and I walk with a walker, and I look like death warmed over. I look like I'm going to keel over and die right there. So I pull up in front of the barbershop, and I triple park because I know the police chief, and I know most of the police, and they know my car, and I'm just covered in stickers. You can't miss my car. And so I just park right there because I can't walk too far, so I just park in front of the door. It's a big, wide avenue where his barbershop is. So, Anyway, I hobble in, and the hip hop music is screaming loud, and there's 6 barbers there working on people, and there's about 20 people in there, and they're dancing and they're talking and they're on their cell phones and blah blah blah. And I walk in and I open the door, and everyone stops talking, and someone hits the button of the stereo, so it stops. And so it's you can hear a pin drop, and you hear my little metal clamps on my legs go clank, 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 and I'm got the walker. I'm kind of going in there, and my hair is really long, and it's like going out like, Medusa. And I had these. You think these eyebrows? I mean, I let them trim them, but anyway, these are trimmed. I mean, when they're like get like really crazy. Anyway, I walk in, and somebody kind of comes right up to my face. He goes, "What do you want? What are you doing here?" And I kind of look around, and I kind of been told who the person I should look for. And I go, "Well, I want so-and-so to cut my hair. I'm here to get a shave and my haircut. It needs it. I'm kind of, pretty wild here." And he starts laughing. So everybody else starts laughing. So I kind of hobble over to where he is. There's a unused barber chair, and he's working on somebody. And I said, "How many people you got in front of me, before the meeting?" And he goes, "Oh, you know about the meeting?" I said, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." He goes, "Well, that's like 2 hours before the meeting." I said, "Yeah, but I want to talk to you. I want to talk to everybody in this room, because how can I know what needs to be done unless I really talk?" And there's 20 people here. This is a nice little slice, and I kind of give him the short thing of who and what I am, and he goes, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool. That's really." And I kind of pull out of my pocket one of my white papers about social conflict and anger, and how to organize a community with love rather than anger. And it says it on the top. And he goes, "Wow, I'm going to have to read this." I said, "Yes, I'm giving it to you now. I want you to stick it someplace safe. And, next, I'll come back here after come to the meeting. I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to lay out a strategy." So I do that. And 3 or 4 of the people at the meeting, I know them, right? I've helped them. They know who and what I am and what I can do. And so, and 2 of them told me to come to this meeting separately. I mean, they didn't know. They thought they were the guy who told me to come. Well, 2 guys told me to come, so I came. So anyway, I'm sitting there taking notes, and there was 3 guys saying, "Who is this white guy? Why is it, he's the devil, blah, blah, blah. Look, he's taking notes." And, the 3 guys who knew me, who were like, ran social organizations and had been at it for 20 years. And the guy, the barber, they said, no. This guy is cool. We need a guy like that. We need one white guy, So basically my job with that organization was to find who everyone was, what they all could do, and see the the chemistry amongst all these people, because mostly all of them hated each other. And that's what the powers that shouldn't be do. They play everybody against everybody, where everyone should be able to get along. I mean, men and women should get along. We're wired to get along. They don't. Powers that shouldn't be manifest that, right? A good example of that politically was Harvey Milk, Mayor Moscone, and the coalition they built in San Francisco to take the power away from the powers that shouldn't be. What were they called? The Nob Hill crowd, the really rich people. People like, who's that? I don't like to use disparaging words, but she's a senator from California, Karen Feinstein. So she was an alderman at that time, but she, was a Democrat. Everyone thought that the Nob Hill kids were all Republican rich people, but no, they represented 2 wings of the same corporate bird. Democrats, Republicans, liberal, conservatives. It's the same thing. It's a corporate entity. Anyway, Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone were really smart. They understood that this isn't how it should be. So they built a coalition of gay, black, Hispanic, Italian, Japanese, Chinese, and everybody else. And once they got them all together, and they picked a thing they all wanted, so they could get behind a unified thing, and that thing was the Nob Hill guys wanted to build a big what do they call it? Civic center, play basketball, have concerts, that kind of thing, make money. Because it was right in the middle of real estate they owned. But all of that real estate were single room occupancies. It was where people lived, right? So that was the thing. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do other things. That will be better for the community, right? So, the Nob Hill gang thought, how can these nicks and spiggers and chinks and faggots get anything together? We'll just keep them going at each other. But no, Melk and Moscone were brilliant strategists and brilliant politicians. They got everybody to go together and got everybody who didn't want that convention center. And so they won. They took over all the seats of the city except for one. Dan White kept it because he was a blue-collar police officer from this neighborhood. So he married into the Nob Hill. His trophy wife was the daughter of one of these rich political guys, a big-time lawyer, judge. So they couldn't do it through the ballot box. They couldn't do it by corrupting people. And so this political structure was changing everything, making the city of San Francisco a really beautiful place. And Feinstein, she all these people are terrible. They're a mob. They don't know what they're doing, but they were really knowing what they were doing because they were changing the economy, taking it away from the rich, and giving it the opportunity to everybody else. So the only way they could get rid of this system was to assassinate Harvey Milk and Mayor Moscone. And Dan White had hypoglycemia. So the Nob Hill guys, they had a doctor. He took Dan White's blood, right? And then he ate 370 Twinkies within an hour. And then they took his blood again. And his blood sugar was like on Venus. And so he was literally, because of his blood sugar, he was insane, right? Because he had hypoglycemia. So he got in his car. He drove down to City Hall because he was an alderman. He could go through the building, and he was a cop, so he could carry a gun. And so he went into Mayor Moscone's office and had a big argument with him and emptied his revolver, 38, into Mayor Moscone. Now, if he was smart, he would only shot him 3 times in the head and then walked down the hallway and screamed at Harvey Milk and shot him. But he didn't. He had to go back out of the building. While everyone was screaming and running around, he went out and got into his car, reloaded his gun, and went back into the building and, emptied the revolver into Harvey Milk. Now, he got off. It was called the Twinkie defense. But it was straight up because he had to leave the building, go to the car, reload the gun. Shooting Mayor Moscone, that could have been manslaughter. He got angry, he lost his cool, he shot him, right? But going out of the building while everyone's freaking out, being calm, and going out to his car, reloading the gun, and coming back in and shooting Harvey Milk, well, that's premeditated murder. So he gets clean away, And the community, when Milk and Moscone were assassinated, everyone went in the street and cried and had candles and laid flowers and did all that. And then, and the powers that shouldn't be, rushed the thing, and they did it not in the city of San Francisco because they wanted a jury of they did it in a small white town of Ku Klux Klan people. And so Dan White got off scot-free, and he took off, and within 3 months he was found in Las Vegas with a gun in his left hand and in his mouth, and the back side of his head gone. But Dan was a right-handed guy. He could have never blown his brains out with a left hand because he had hurt his left hand too, so he couldn't have pulled the trigger. So obviously Dan Boy was taken out himself. And that's the corruption level of what we have right now in our total body politic. And that's what's really great about our buddy Donnie, because he's the X-lax. He's emptying the colon. But we, as a cadre of love's co-creation, we can use the tools of the system to do the right thing. Right? Okay. So enough storytelling. That should give you more than enough to play with. Don't want to give cash, but I'll give candy, not candy, cigarette. Bring them food. Go get them pizzas. There's so many empty houses. Okay, empty houses. Homesteading. Like I said, if you can get me to where your town is, I'd be glad to come and help you lay out a strategy. I can do this. I've done it many times in many other cities. Yes. Yep. And those kids are in the rubble of their life. So, again, I have, my Gmail, my YouTube, and my X-rated .blogspot. I have those three little platforms. Anybody who wants to use them, put stuff up, let's do it, Anyone who wants to help me to learn how to write grants, how to set up a nonprofit. I mean, our collaborative artist project in New York, the first 3 years, we got $6 million from the NEA and NISCA because nobody was doing what we were doing. And we showed that we could truly, make a difference in the cultural world. And all the movers, all the people who were the millionaires who owned like OK Harris and all the big galleries and the museums like Guggenheim and Whitney and Museum of Modern, they were all behind us. They were, hey, give money to these guys, take it from, take 10% from us and give it to them, because if you do that, we will succeed 1,000 times more. And that's how to do it. Like when we moved into Soho and we got static from the town, the city, the powers that shouldn't be. You can't live in a factory building. Blah, 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 blah. We went straight to the mayor, John Lindsay, and said, "Listen, buddy, this neighborhood is a cancer in the middle of NYU's at the top, Wall Street was at the bottom of it. Let us do our thing. We will turn it into gold." And we did. Like, I'm sure all of you have heard of Soho and Tribeca and Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and Harlem. These are all places that the city gave us carte blanche to do whatever the heck we wanted and backed us up within the construct of their own cultural entities, right? Because once you show the powers that shouldn't be that, hey, you're not there to attack them, you're there to help them out, to make this thing work better. Yeah, I'm right here. The kitty. Come on, kitty. Yeah, I know. Where is John? He allegedly, homeboy, what's his name, arrived at 4 o'clock, and I was still in the hospital getting my eyes operated, and he wanted me to come and get him and drive him back here, and I couldn't see anything. A friend of mine basically drove me back here, kind of where my car, I put my car nearby so I didn't have to go on the highway and go through traffic. I just had to, drive up the hill and drive up our driveway. I could see good enough for that. And my eyes were actually looking, up until about 2 hours ago, it was like I was looking through gauze. I mean, you can see through gauze, especially if I wear my glasses. So anyway, is there a difference between sympathy and empathy? Yes, they're two different things. Empathy is the more important one because that's where you get the person identifying. Sympathy works more on your chemical emotions. Empathy goes straight to your soul. Sympathy is is, you know how on an engine there is a governor, of the throttle, so you don't go full bore. Sympathy is what makes a liberal. And what is a liberal? But someone who feels guilty about being prejudiced, And they don't really do anything. They kind of go blah, 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 blah. Someone should do something about this. Empathy is when you go and do something about it. Sympathy is just when you go blah, 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 blah. Yeah, being able to relate through sharing a similar experience. That's empathy. Sympathy is when you feel guilty and you go blah, 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 blah. Now, that's just my opinion from my experience, but let's see. I should hope not. Sympathy is similar, but how about yeah, Twitch. Yeah, empathy is sympathy from a personal experience. Yeah, I would go that way. Yeah. What I'm saying is, more a prejudice because I've been involved in social activism for 50 years. I'm just so sick of liberals and what I call the usual suspect sock puppets. I was at... Need to see. As soon as I drop the other, I feel a part of it. Yep. Again, I'm happy to be the little pebble. I see the little ripples affecting you guys, and that's the way it should be. These are great chats. So Mr. Riot is really he's got his toes in the pond. He hasn't dove in, he hasn't walked in, but he's already committed. His direction is moving forward rather than backward, going, oh, I wish someone would do something about this. No, Mr. Riot is definitely going on a ride forward. Mr. Tucker, it is pessimistic to say that getting arts grants like that aren't as easy or available that much anymore. Well, I would say that's true, but it wasn't that easy then. This was, the height of, who started the National Endowment of the Arts? Jesse frickin' Helms, because he wanted to show the arts were for, those commies weren't the only guys who had culture. So did we, right? But all that money from the NEA and NISCO went to the opera and the ballet and Lincoln Center. It didn't go to all the art. And all these young folk were coming out of colleges from all over America and going to California and New York City and Chicago to become, do their artists. But a lot came to New York because New York was the place to go. So collaborative artists, we were we were a bunch of artists, and most of us, we were all at the creme de la creme of that art scene. I mean, we were all being shown in 57th Street galleries and stuff, and and I had my little cachet of being not only an artist, I was artist, scientist, philosopher. I was the blue Smurf grandpa at 28 years old. So, and I could talk to anybody, rich, poor, and the guys who owned the galleries loved having me to come to their openings, and they would, they'd be amazing openings, not just, a bottle of beer and a candy bar. I mean, really amazing food. And I would bring, who I thought would be sellable artists for them. And I would tell those folks, bring a bunch of garbage bags and take whatever food is left over. And that was part of the deal. And I also got seed money. I started a gallery that way. Anyway, so it was not easy then. It was just our attitude that Kiki Smith, Judy Rivka, Julian Schnabel, Keith Haring, John Bowman. These were all people who came, they weren't poor. They came from not super rich, but they all went to a good college. They were all culturally came from families who were about culture, and there were more than just those guys. There were a whole bunch of others that started Collaborative Artists Project, and we were truly a collective, And I was the guy, talking about, hey, we have to do this, as the artist in the first person, and that was, in Brave New World, our hero, they called him the Savage, and the beginning we were the Savage Seven, who started having, and I had these, Friday night dinner parties, and I had by the time Collab we started that, I'd already been doing that for like 5 years, and I had quite the Rolodex of connected people, and I call them up, hey, I'm going to do something. They would come because it was always fun. They always met interesting people. They always learned things they needed to know. And there was always great food and music and poetry and art and all the rest. So that was my job in putting that. I was the guy who did that. And when something needed to be done, like when we had our art gallery and all we had was a bear, well, I lit the sucker up. I mean, I took stuff out of all the art galleries I built, and I said, hey, I'm gonna borrow this. I need this. I take down 20 feet of track out of OK Harris. What are you doing? I said, well, we're starting a gallery, and this is where your new crew is coming from. He goes, okay. You need how about a few Benjamins, and and that's how it worked. And once we primed the pump with doing shows and things that were like, my God, and I showed you pictures, guys, we had our own circus tent. We go all over and put on shows and then go. And the city let us do it. The utility company let us because, all those guys knew I was a master electrician and I was hooking up buildings into, so if I lived up the grade of a Con Ed vault, I had all the right tools. I had all the Con Ed tools, So, and that's what happens when you co-create with everyone. You don't make factions. You don't make cliques. Everyone is all of your relations. And that was my job. My job was to get everyone to be all, and there was amazing diversity, politically, socially, economically, culturally, but I got everyone on the same page, having a good time, realizing, oh, I hated that person, but he's not such a bad guy. I would always ask, why do you like that guy? And now I see why, that was my job. That's what I do. I still do that, right? And that's why I went on YouTube, because we are in that window of 40 days and 40 nights. So every one of you folks need to be doing something simple that Mr. Ride is doing, finding a community, a place, a thing you want to do, something that you can enjoy. Why I did all this stuff is that I never did anything I didn't enjoy. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, it was almost like, insurmountable, but I was having a good time. The universe was always taking care of me. I was always finding, a great place. Someone was always feeding me in every way that I needed to be fed, right? Pop, as pessimists say that getting arts grants like that aren't no, it's not. It's as easy as it was then, and they're as available as now. You just can't. Just don't take no. Just do it. Move forward. Always move forward. Don't do the same boring crap over and over expecting a different outcome. I think I am. I'd like to have a video documentary in the arts scene in the early days of Cloak Kids. Yes, I know that guy. Yes, because I built Xenons, and I met that guy at a place called Wetlands. And that was the first real, all the other clubs I built cost a lot of money and had a lot of guys like as the backers. So they wanted to make money right off the bat. Wetlands was very interesting. It was a nonprofit thing, and it let anybody do anything they wanted. And I was part of that art scene, so they were like, oh, you need to help us out do this. So it was another place I could have artists put their art up. And once that was shown to be really whoa, things like the Tunnel Club and Danceteria and especially Kamikaze, these were all places that I lit. And Tunnel Club was a old, railroad tunnel that wasn't used anymore. And these guys rented it and built a nightclub on the aesthetic of it being a railroad tunnel. And it was, right? And it was still kind of connected. And it was almost, I don't know, it was big, maybe quarter mile long. And the front we built, put a door on it, and real fancy front. And then there was a place going in, and there was a beautiful lobby, and then there was where you kind of went up on a mezzanine, and there was bars, 4 bars, and that was all very fancy. We built that, right? But as you went further and further in the tunnel, it was more and more, less and less fancy, and more because the tunnel rats lived there. There were about 250,000 people who lived underground and still do. There's a whole culture down there. And I went and studied it, and it was like, wow. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie. And a friend of mine in the Village Voice wrote a little piece. I told him how to get down there, and he wrote something. And a buddy of his in the New York Times went with him and really got way deep to the point where they got lost. And, we're down there for a couple of days. And by the time they came out, they were had PTSD. It was like a bad sci-fi movie, which I wrote a script for. You guys in Hollywood, I have about, 50 scripts of these stories. I just need to be, I'm done with Roanoke. I'm done with the green, Now, I will go and visit them because they have value. I'm here now. I don't have no idea where what's-his-name is. He's supposed to have flown in. And what I want to do with what's-his-name is he wants to do YouTubes, right? And I'm going to say, listen, buddy, you want to really go viral on this, doing the same crap of you working out and being just, no. What you are is a channel. And I can put you in a hypnagogic state where that channel will come out. And when, dimensional entities and all the things that are driving you nuts come out, all the things that drive you to be anxious and you just kind of go off, bing, 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 the Libra, these things will come out. And once they come out, you no longer will be upset, anxious, or you'll be able to get your life. You'll be able to be you. You'll be able to do what you want. And this thing will go more viral than anything's gone viral. And we had to make a little contract where I am the, executive producer, and that I at least at the beginning get 40% of whatever you make. And I want to get, 60% of the backside of this, right? Otherwise, it's like arrivederci, buddy, Now I've, since last Christmas, I have spent more time away from John. I stopped living with him, and I would just come and visit him. Like this, I came here about a month ago because, 2 days before I showed up, we had a freeze, and there was ice on my porch, and it was like, late September or early October. I said, I went and looked at my friend's Oppenheimer Ranch. Man, you want to know what's going on in the weather on the planet, or just period, what's going on in the solar system on the planet? Go to Oppenheimer Ranch. You'll love it. He's great. He's the best because weather is all about looking at trends, and our weather folk not so good. They can't even tell you what's going to be tomorrow. But anyway. So if John, what's his name, and I can come to a firm agreement, and we can, that's going to be ridiculously cold. What we need is to close down the school, turn everything off, and because, I mean, last Thursday, we had an ice storm that I've been here 18 years and I haven't seen it. Like, it dropped a big tree every 50 seconds for about 5 hours. Hundreds of trees came down, and it just obliterated the electric system on this hill and on this side of town. And of course, we can blame the utility company because they've done no maintenance, haven't chopped any branches or trees around it for years. Well, we'll just fix that little one thing that, well, this took, I don't know what percentage of the whole grid, but it sure did a number on it. Anyway, so from last Thursday until today, we haven't had electricity, water. It's cold, so I've been, I went downtown and couch surfing. Today I had my eyes worked on, so I stayed at a friend's, and they, took me there and then drove me back, and I waited till it looked, because after, it's like, you guys who like to do acid, get your eyes operated on, because, especially in the process, because once they stick those needles in my eyes, man, my optic nerves, it's like Timothy Leary is living in my optic nerve. And that kind of does that for, the first 20 minutes. And then it eases up. And after 2 hours, it's like looking through gauze. And right now, my eyes are in pretty good shape. I can see pretty well. So I stayed on my friend's couch, and my friend took me, in the middle of the afternoon to get operated on. And then we went and had a cup of coffee, and then went to where my car was, and it was very close to the hill. So I didn't go through traffic or traffic lights or anything that I would have, been really tested to try and do. Anyway, so I got up here, about 4-ish, which is when, what's-his-name was supposed to arrive. And, like I said, he expected me to come pick him up, and then I said, hey, I'm having my eyes operated. I had to tell him like 3 times before he realized, so you can't, okay. And that, again, is when you're thinking about only you. Now, what's his name? It's not his fault he is the way he is. Well, and he's not crazy. He's not what's in the DMS, right? And he is neurotic, and it's environmentally caused by the environment that he's lived in. So, and he is an artist in the first person. And, he wasn't around in a town where people said, he's just an artist. And they'd, he's strange, So if somebody's been telling you that for the last 30 or 40 years, you might have a chip on your shoulder. So, so I have no idea where what's his name is, I hope he's okay. So I came back here and cleaned up the house and made him a nice dinner. So he would have, because he kept saying, I'm eating really terrible food. So I made him a nice vegan Thanksgiving meal. And it's on, and I, so I have no money. But the other day I went to Walmart's, because they actually have some of the best vegetables at the cheapest price overall. And I'm a discerning, thing. So, like you go to Food Lion or Kroger's, that lemon is like 90 cents for one lemon. At Walmart's, it was 3 lemons for 90 cents or $1. And so stuff like that. So I was at Walmart's, and they're just clearing the shelves of the Halloween stuff, and they're putting the Christmas stuff up, and so they had taken a bunch of stuff from their appliance neck of the woods because they were going to turn that into a Christmas thing, and they stuck it with the Halloween stuff. And I go and look for Halloween stuff for costumes and especially lights. I buy Halloween lights, and I buy Christmas lights a week or so after the holiday, because that projector thing that you see up there, if you bought that the week before Halloween, it was $39. You buy it 2.5 weeks after, it was $2. So I hit the supermarkets Walmarts, Big Lots, you know, I can buy things like that if I spend less than $10. That's within my little budget. Well, anyway, they were clearing out a thing, and they had, appliances that they weren't carrying anymore, so they would just want to get rid of them. So if they had this brand that they're not going to have anymore, and they had, like Mr. Coffee machines and, crock pot things and a whole bunch of stuff. And if you, on the average, those appliances were $35, right? Well, they were selling, if you bought two, it was $14. If you bought one, it was $9. So I bought myself a Mr. Coffee and a crock pot for $14. It was within my little budget, and that's something I wanted, I needed, because homeboy upstairs, he's got like 6 coffee machines. I said, why don't you put one of them downstairs, So I've spray painted, pretty much every dish, every pot, everything that I've ever brought in this place, he takes upstairs and then, leaves dirty in the sink. So I've had to like spray paint everything like, construction orange, so he can oh yeah, I shouldn't bring that upstairs. Anyway, so I was at Walmart's, and I bought myself a crock pot. So I made him, it's really yummy stew. So this, food he can eat for the next 4 days. And that's, instead of him, going for donuts, cookies, and loaves of bread. So anyway, that's what I did. I had my eyes operated on. I came back and I cleaned up the house a bit. Washed all the dishes, cleaned all the surfaces, swept the floor, and picked up all the cat cans, because I've been taking care of the cats, and I just kind of open up the can and empty whatever comes out onto a little plate, and then put the can next to it, and then kind of clean it up. So I cleaned everything up, put everything in one garbage thing. Tomorrow's garbage day, so it won't look like a wreck when he gets here. So I did that, and I expected him to be back way, like around 5 o'clock, and, he won't tell me where he is, because, if you're not going to come and get me, why should I tell you where I am? It's like, you'll tell my father. It's like, what? Anyway, my whole thing is to hope that I can get what's-his-name to take a road trip, because it's going to be ridiculously cold, and if he stays here, I'm out of here. I'm going to come visit one of you guys down in Florida or Puerto Rico or any of the place. Hey, guys, anybody on this crew want to we can go to Puerto Rico. It's part of America. We can go there and volunteer and help people and put together a theater, art, mural, poetry crew. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we can go do, You don't really need that crappy job. You don't have to put the dog collar on to, working at Burger King, you can leave that job, you can find a Burger King job, So I had a number of skill sets, I'm a great electrician. I'm definitely, a great photographer. I'm a great healer, a great negotiator, a great muralist. I'm a painter. I know how to do trompe-l'oeil. So, and I've traveled all around the world, and one of those skill sets, and a teacher, I was always able to cruise in and get a job, being the electrician or this or that. But now, at the age I am, nobody wants a 70-year-old guy to do any of that. But the real interesting thing, the things I used to be able to do at being an old guy, I can do all of them, but the ones, the negotiator, the scholar, that's all being replaced by apps. Law is totally being replaced by artificial intelligence. I would say in 3 years, there won't even, be judges or district attorneys. It'll all be artificial intelligence. Now the Dirty Dozen. Well, I haven't taken a shower in 4 months, and I still smell fresh as a daisy. Check his YouTube channel. Whose YouTube channel? I've lost. Let's see. Are you familiar with Nelson Sullivan videos? Okay, that guy's. Yes. So yes, so Nelson, I met him in New York at the club scene. Yep. And so see, he took all that stuff, and he had the wherewithal, or he knew someone who said, "Oh, let's do this," and he's done it. So I've moved around so much, I've lost so many things, but I still have books and books and books of photographs. So anybody who wants to help, I'll give you 40% if we find a publisher. I mean, I have the stories. You want to write them up so people will read them. I mean, if you go to xratted.blogspot.com, you will see my writing, my stories, and my style. And my style is something that, gives, not everyone can read it, but it's a shamanic tool. You want to know about shamanism, you want to be an alchemist, go read this stuff. Okay, 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 29 seconds. I'm going to split at 1 minute, 53 minutes, 1 hour, 53 minutes, and 53 seconds, right? So we'll have 3 minutes to chat a bit. So what were you saying here? Stuff is, everything is, but not really. I mean, I get everything out of the garbage. It's called free. With green energy, well, I have a lot. Sam Lovins was one of the guy who invented, who was the patron, not invented, but patron saint of the Earth Day. And I've, built solar powered, I've built hydro dams. I've built solar power for 300 homes. I've built, hydrogen fuel cells. I have used wireless transmission of current. I have turned water into hydrogen, oxygen to heat a 30-unit apartment building. I have an amazing, my little hideaway in the Green Hills is totally green. I started help start the New York City gardening. We had gardens, and I'm Mr. Let's do raised beds. So you want to do anything. You want to take over an abandoned building and have it off grid, I can do it. Heat it off grid, I can do it. You want to know about, this place right now is kind of insulated with, I bought a packet of 0.9 millimeter plastic drop cloths, right, from Lowe's, right? It had 12 of them in there. And I bought a can of spray adhesive. And I just kind of sprayed it over the windows, around the window, on the wall, and stuck the plastic on it, right? Then I took some egg cartons and sprayed contact cement and stuck them to the plastic. And then I put another plastic covering over that. And it has an R factor of 14. At a cost, I covered 800 square feet with R14 factor. Plus, it's over the window, so it's keeping the breezes and that out. So what little heat is heating rather than being absorbed by the cold wind. And that cost me all of $12. So I have lots of green experience, 50 years of green experience. And 50 years, I went to Cooper Union, and I was in the first class of the alternative technology. We built half of the stuff that's being used now in the corporate world, like the meter that utility companies use to, when you have the photo things where it buys it from you, you use it and don't get it from them. And we made that meter. And Cooper Union had enough money to fight the utilities for 20 years until they said, we'll use this. And then they made it on the backside because they didn't sell the patent on it. So yes, I have like a lot. I mean a lot of green experience. Yes. So what else are we saying here? What you'll do at this school? Well, when it was built, it was an art school. When I had it for 18 years, it was my mystic school, and I taught people to be shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemists. And I did that because it has some amazing ley lines and other dimensional portals here. And so I was being Yoda for 18 years. And yet the people who came, I don't want to do the work. I don't want to do, we got to sweat. We have to do ceremonies. You have to meditate. Here are 40 books, ancient books you have to read. So you have to learn Hebrew. I just want to give you $300 and you give me a piece of paper saying that I'm a shaman. So I did that for, right. But because I had very few really, and what makes a good teacher is the student. And why I am doing a good job here at Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob is you guys. You're putting in 50% of the juice in this whole endeavor. School, yeah. Photos are a book for sure. Yeah. Yep, and all you need is, those really cheap drop cloths, spray adhesive, and go in the dumpster and pick out into a supermarket and go through their dumpster, and they always throw hundreds of, the plastic 8-crafts, which make the space, if you put them all around and then put plastic on top of that, and then there's like that much space between one layer of plastic and the other level of plastic, and that's why we get a R rating of 14, for 800 square feet, for $15. So if we bring this on the road, we can show people how to do this. We can go in their houses. We can do all the above. Okay, here we are. 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 5 seconds. So at 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 57 seconds, I'm going to say au revoir. I love you. So did you guys like the morning? So morning is the cowboy show, and the afternoon is the evening. The 7 p.m. is the Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And remember, you can get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And remember, go look at my writing at xratted.blogspot.com. And I love you guys. I always have, I always will. And it's because I'm your Sensei Al Bob. Okay, 1 hour, 57 minutes and 47 seconds. 48, 9, 50, 51. Okay, lots of kisses. Sweet dreams. Come to me in your dreams. 7. There it is. See you later. Bye. Boop, 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 boop. Do, 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 do. Woo!